For the longest time, the Beach Boys stood on the beach with Pet Sounds. They took their surfboard and they rode the waves deep into the ocean. Running commentary. We are exploring listening to albums. It is a lost art form. The Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. Brian Wilson is documented as having had health issues and substance abuse issues, which really made this probably the last cohesive Beach Boys album there was. Lots of Brian Wilson's mental illness, I think, coming through on this record. It was, I think, for that reason, brave and courageous that they were able to continue forward with this project, and I'm glad that it was released because there was so much bravery here. There's a sort of kicking back against establishment here that comes from being really successful but seemingly really unhappy. I guess, you know, this Fun in the Sun thing was just wearing really thin for Brian Wilson. I don't know how well documented the other band members' part of this whole project is or was, but the sadness is just overflowing on this song. There are moments where they try to be happy, but you can hear that they're trying to be happy. It's what makes this album, I think, really fantastic, is that there's a sadness to it, which I think in a lot of cases Americans are not capable of. I think, you know, Americans either try to be deliberately miserable, deliberately punk, deliberately happy, deliberately rap. Seldom are they just who they are. And I think that these guys, really, led by Brian Wilson, were just in this sort of state of depression, which in the middle of the 60s which was such a bouncy, happy-go-lucky time. This album really stands out as perhaps one of the first concept albums. The group assembled with goats on the album cover. The goats were happy to see them, to see what they had in their hands, as most animals are. What was that about? Why did they get together with the goats? Why were they not on the beach? There's green in the back. They're all stood around at a fence with goats. The symbolism of this album, something's going horribly wrong, and that does not tie in with an American business model. Not generally, anyway. Maybe Beach Boys helped somewhere back in the past that generation come back into TV and movie projects. I don't necessarily hear it in music of the future, although I know that this album is very influential. I don't think anyone else captured this sound. I don't think anyone else has this sound. Think of it, 66, they formed in 61, they put out 11 studio albums. I think I might be miserable. If I've been knocking out albums at that rate of knots, maybe I would be really tired and really exhausted and really frazzled. Wouldn't It Be Nice is one of the hit singles from the albums. I love that middle eight breakdown where it slows down and it's just kind of like, you really feels like you're being sort of dragged backwards on a dragnet with a parachute. You're like, this is like a bad trip. And it starts to make you wonder if acid is involved in this. I feel like there's a bit of acid going on here. There's definitely some kind of narcotic influence, I think. Because what he's basically doing is taking the Beach Boys model and kind of just warping it through this sort of... It just doesn't seem like them. That's what it is. It's like you're listening again, like, is this really them? That's Not Me is another track on the album. It's big in the eyes of the world, but all I really care about is being big in the eyes of one girl. You know, nice and romantic, good sensibility. Pinning your hopes on love, as you and I both know, is not always a great gamble. I like the sentiment of this song, I really do. Packed up and split for the city, that's something a lot of us can relate to. Packed up and split for the city because the small town thing's not working out for us, and then we get to the big town and that doesn't always necessarily work out that well for us either. So I think there's sort of a sense of realism here, and is this what makes this such a legendary album to people, is the fact that you take the American dream and you literally turn it on its head. I mean, that's what they've done here. They haven't just taken the status quo and said, we're the Beach Boys and we're always happy. You have to remember the Good Vibrations, which is also a #1 single, is not included in this album. God, I wish it was, because it really would help this album. But if you think about Good Vibrations still, how convinced are you when you put that on Pet Sounds? It would probably take away the magic and the euphoria of Good Vibrations, because the rest of the album would suck the Good Vibrations out of it. It's sad. It makes Good Vibrations sound sad and draining, and that the sonic effect on it, though, is really, I mean, Good Vibrations is not on this album, but it's from the same time period, and it's important to note a #1 single, one of their legendary songs. Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulders, classic haunting melody. The strings are very effective here. Very sad, very, very sad song. It's just so not American. This is why the Americans didn't buy it. It's like, who the fuck are these guys? Like, they're going against everything we stand for. The big cars, the fast women. This is not what they're talking about here. There's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of questioning your world. You look at some of the comments that are posted for the album, and you see that, oh, these lyrics are schizo. I still love it, but he's like, he's here 1 minute, he's down the next. But I think that there's an honesty to that. This is what makes this album so groundbreaking, is that people are talking about different aspects of their character and their being and their sphere, which I think in a lot of 60s work is just not... You know, I would even go so far to say as this, to me, kind of outdoes the Beatles and the Stones in some way. It's so personal. They're not making these records for you to hear so much as coming up with something sonically and personally beautiful. I'm Waiting for the Day is this big drums intro, classic 60s synth. It's got that Good Vibrations like synth, which ties in with, you know, the time frame. I really like this song. Let's Go Away for a While is this like Marvy jazz instrumental. I really like it. Again, I like it. I'm shocked. I'm surprised. I have to say that I'm thinking of Stripey Swimwear. I'm thinking of, you know, Surfing USA. I'm thinking of California Girls, and the fact that they've just said, fuck all that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to say how I feel. You're going to pay $500,000 to make the album, and I think that this is what makes this really a groundbreaking record. I love the strange chords of the strings and wind combination towards the end. There's crescendoing here, you know, there's orchestral flourishes. Why would you ever associate this with the Beach Boys? This is why they're getting this love. Not at the time where everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're just garbage canning your whole career. But in retrospect, what they've done here is to create something just so much greater than that popcorn. And I'm not saying that the early stuff wasn't great. Of course, it was just like, yeah, you know, good times, good times, good times. But we know that that's not what life's about, and that's what makes this such a great record. We got to talk about Sloop John B., which is just such a clever record. They're the Beach Boys, right? So you imagine that they get on this ship called the Sloop John B. And it's the worst trip, not only that they've ever been on, but probably that anyone that's listened to a 45 in the 60s has ever been on. Everything's going wrong. Sheriff John... I don't know how they get Sheriff aboard to arrest the guy, but they do, and... I guess the cook eats all the corn and gets pissed off, and it's just not going well. What a miserable song. But it's a great song, and it's great because it's brave, and it's beach, and it's to do with the sea, and they're on a ship, and like I said, they're going deep into the ocean. Rather than standing in a little swimwear at the side of the ocean, they're actually getting on the boat and going out into the water. And just to remind you, we're 80% water, all of us, the planet, everything else. This is really significant to get onto a boat and have a horrible time. Because the Beach Boys in 1962 would have got on a ship and had a great time. They'd have been having a lovely time, drinking cocktails and talking to the girls. You know, it would have been fantastic. Not in 1966, and certainly not in Brian Wilson's mind. God Only Knows is a perfect pop song. It's one of the best songs I think ever written. It is far and away... It's outlasted its place on the Big Love TV show, which was not big enough to carry the weight of this song. Irrelevant in comparison to the weight and the gravity of the song, God Only Knows is when you don't have the answers to things. God only knows, that's what it is. You don't have the answers. I don't have the answer to how I feel about you. I am unable to express it. What a powerful emotion. When has a song been written by an American like this? When? That matters like that. That song really matters. The harmonies, the sadness, the reality. This is really just an absolute cornerstone foundation of this album. This song, all Americans should be proud of that this came out of California and out of the United States. It's one of the best songs ever written. It really is a fantastic song. I know there's an answer. You still believe in me. The sadness is continuing. Caroline No ends with these sort of like railroad noises. I have to say, as an Englishman, one of my favorite things about the railroad in the United States is it makes these like these loud noises. It's a very distinct noise that you don't get back home. When a railroad like blows its horn, like you can even go to like Newark in New Jersey and you'll hear the Amtrak going through, and there's something about a train station in the United States that really summarizes the Industrial Revolution in this country, and the fact that it's on this record, and actually it's kind of taken down a gauge or two. Like, it's not at the normal speed that you'd hear a train's horn. It's kind of it's slowed down, and it's like really meaningful. Caroline No is what I remember most about this song is that fact. Here Today, nothing's, I just wasn't made for these times. We get it now. You're depressed. You're not having a great time. We get it. This is a sad album. We get it. I don't need to go into more details on these specific tracks. I've done this before, particularly with concept albums where it's like, okay, we get what you're trying to put across. You're not happy. There's emotional turmoil. Pet Sounds itself is an instrumental. Certainly not the best song on the album. In final summation of the album, 88%. Pet Sounds is something that all Americans should be proud of as a true underbelly of their character, which they are seldom willing to show. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, recommend it to friends, post comments. Also, if you have an album that you'd like to hear reviewed, we welcome your requests.